this has been mentioned, the low savings rate in the region. But of course, part of the problem in the region is the unequal distribution of income and the fact that the middle classes and the upper classes are quite conspicuous spenders, and we therefore have to address that cultural factor. And I think governments do very little to encourage, in fact, savings. If you live in the country that I live in Jamaica, there are national campaigns on many things, family planning, on drunk driving, etc., but there are no national campaigns really that are sustained and systematic on encouraging thrift and savings within the society amongst those who are able to save. And I think that kind of effort will be needed. When all is said and done, I myself quite doubt whether or not the region will be in a position to meet the financing requirements of the SDGs, even taking into account the efforts that have to be made to attract increased investment, to engage the private sector into providing financing. It will be very difficult for the region to meet the SDG targets unless there is significant contribution from the international community. And I think we have to continue to make that case. Finally, simply to reiterate that the SDGs provides an important window of opportunity that the region should seek to seize in terms of its development prospects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. And now I introduce to you our second discussant, Professor Compton Byrne, Professor Emeritus of Economics, who during his long and stellar academic career served as principal of the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies and Pro-Vice Chancellor for Planning and Development. I invite you, Professor Byrne, to share your views with us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prado. Good afternoon to everyone. Let me try to be as brief as I can here. First of all, let me say what I think is the financial resource problem of Caribbean SIDS, small island developing states, and in that definition I include mainland territories, Guyana and Suriname. The financial problems, I think, are really threefold. One, an inadequate supply of foreign and domestic financial resources for medium and long-term investment. Second, achieving a better concordance between domestic savings in financial institutions and the demand for credit by production enterprises. Third, reducing debilitating foreign debt payments. Some of these have already been discussed and really require no elaboration at this stage in the forum's proceedings. The region has tremendous investment needs at this point in time and to take it forward over the next 20 or so years. If we look at the situation over the last, say, 20 years or 15 years, and particularly over the last 5 or 6 years, what we notice is that the public investment expenditures are below trend now. If you were to fit a trend line and looked at where you would have expected public expenditures to be on investment, you'll find that the reality is below that. So we are underinvesting, not because of an unwillingness to do so, but because of a financial incapacity to do so. Secondly, we need investment for structural transformation and for modernization to bring about the diversification we talk about, as well as to improve the stock of what we currently have. We need investment, as has been said over and over in this forum, for environmental protection and enhancement, for adaptation to climate change, for renewable energy, and for productivity and innovation. So there are tremendous needs. I think part of the solution to this has to be in expanding access to foreign finance. As Gail Hurley noted, and has been noted by others and by Governor Ambaran, there have been adverse trends in overseas development assistance and in foreign direct investment. In fact, if you look at the countries in the last 5 years, you will find a significant diminution in both overseas development assistance and in direct foreign investment. The central issue with respect to overseas development assistance is eligibility. The fact that by the emphasis on the per capita income levels of Caribbean countries, many of them are excluded from various avenues of overseas development assistance. And also the fact that aid donors have realigned their preferences away from the things that are centered to the Caribbean to other, maybe broader geopolitical considerations, and also to deal with what is often termed fragile states or post-conflict states. We need a return to a focus in the Caribbean, which must take account of economic vulnerability, the acute exposures to economic shocks and natural hazard shocks, which are reflected in the volatility of economic growth, in per capita income, in fiscal revenues, and in purchasing power of exports. And the volatility is quite pronounced. It could mean, in some years, a loss of 25% or more of GDP. We need to factor in as well, in the context of the current discussions, we need to factor in development needs. The UN Intergovernmental Committee of Experts on Sustainable Development Financing identifies poverty and hunger, health and education, affordable energy, and gender equality. The Sustainable Development Goals justify financing for infrastructure, climate change, environment, rural development, among other public expenditures. So factoring development needs into the equation would be an important contribution to restructuring the arrangements for the flow of international finance. It moves us away from the one-dimensionality of per capita income criteria to these other development needs expressed by the UN ECLAC, for instance, as structural gaps, which are present in the middle-income Caribbean economies, no less than they are in the low-income economies. I think we need to take account as well, too, of the goal of fostering social stability. There is no question, as we have noted several times in this forum, that crime is on the rise in the region. It is a problem, crime and citizen insecurity. These things create major stresses for democratic governance. In fact, they may result in situations in which you have parallel governance arrangements in some districts within individual countries. So that social stability is a very important objective. It is no less important for our sets of countries as is the question of conflict and post-conflict societies. The key, therefore, is to ensure that the design of financial facilities in the multilateral finance institutions and in the bilateral agencies not only do not exclude Caribbean small island developing states, but also explicitly encompass the kinds of development needs which characterize them. One should also be considering expanding or channeling more resources through development banks, and I mean here regional and sub-regional development banks, which are better oriented towards development finance and are better equipped and in fact are also more attuned to the realities in client countries. And this can be done essentially by the international community strengthening the capital base of such institutions and strengthening their institutional capacity and risk management capacities as well. Mention has been made in this panel about mobilizing diaspora funds, both in terms of remittances and diaspora bonds, taking advantage of the large diaspora communities in North America and Europe, their income, earnings, and savings capabilities, and their loyalties to home countries. The prospects for those mobilizing diaspora bonds, however, would be enhanced by several initiatives which the Caribbean countries can take themselves. The attractiveness of such flows could be enhanced by, of course, improvements in the quality of national economic management, by improvement in political governance, which gives a greater assurance of stability for the future, by improvements in the regulatory framework, by improvements in the efficiency of settlement systems for moving your funds in and moving your funds out, by improvements in judicial administration, which would make it easier to settle disputes when they do arise, as they often do, and by improvements in the credit ratings on sovereign bonds, sovereign debt, and satisfaction of host country requirements. So there are a number of things which I think could need to be put in place or significantly improved if we are to realize the objective of attracting diaspora bonds in sufficient quantities. I think that we also need to improve the prospects for sovereign bonds. If we look at the situation in recent times, we will find that Caribbean countries generally have not been very active in the international bond market. Trinidad and Tobago has been, Jamaica has been, Barbados has pretty much dropped out, and the reason, and Bahamas has been from time to time. The reason for this retreat from the international bond market is partly because the international credit ratings agencies have become more pessimistic in their ratings of Caribbean countries. And therefore, the risk premium, the discounting for risk has increased, and the sovereign bonds are not as attractive. So here again, one has to try and improve the situation. And really falls back on the question of, again, the quality of national economic management, the quality of governance systems, and the quality of your settlement and judicial administration arrangements. When one looks at, as another possibility, private bond issues, corporate bond issues, some of the same things arise. Because the credit standing of a corporate bond is reliant not only on the entity's own situation, but on the situation in the economy in which it operates or has its greatest exposure. And we have seen that in relation to the downgrading of Sagicor recently because of its high exposure to the Barbados government. And this morning I was reading the Moody's report on First Citizens Bank, which was